Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Do, 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 do. And I've got no rhythm. Today I'm going to do Friday Reads for you. I had another great reading week, so I will take you through all the books I've finished since we last chatted, which is 5. And also some more frontlist stuff. So that's this has I've been on a good run. So I'll take you through. Okay, first one. Is an interesting one because this is the book 11 in a series. I finished Janet Ivanovich's 11 on top. This is the 11th in the Stephanie Plum series. They have, everyone has been a joy. Everyone has had moments where I've actually LOL'd. I think I'm done. Yeah, I think she's up to about 27 or 28 in the series. They just got all a bit samey. This is the last one I have. So I bought 8, 9, 10, 11 together, 4 together, and this is the one currently in my possession. I don't have any others in my TBR, and I just think I'm not going to buy any more for the foreseeable future. I could see myself at some point being stuck somewhere and going into a secondhand bookshop and seeing number 12 and saying, oh yeah, I fancy that. But for now, I don't think I'm going to order any more. I think I'm done. They've been great fun. Hard for me to stop a series in the middle. But it's just a bit samey at this point, and I enjoyed this one, and it was good. It was a bit long, actually. This was 350 pages, which is a long for one of these things. And just the same thing happens again and again. Stephanie doesn't marry Morelli, kind of fancies Ranger, and someone blows her car up 2 or 3 times. Always good value, but I think I'm done. So that was 11th, and for now, the last in the Stephanie Plum series. After that, read a couple of graphic novels that I picked up in the biggest book haul in YouTube history last June. This is over a year ago. I bought 2 volumes together of a series called Die, D-I-E, written by Kieran Gillen, who is more famous for The Wick and the Divine. I read the first volume of that once and didn't really get on with it, but I must have picked these up cheap because I got 2 volumes together. First one is called Volume 1 Fantasy Heartbreaker, and Volume 2 Split the Party. And Die in this instance is the singular of dice. And this is a series published by Image originally. Each one of these is 5 issues. This is the first 10 issues of the series, which ran for a few more. And it's about Dungeons and Dragons, and so the Die. It's a role-playing game, and 6 kids get sucked into a fantasy world and disappear for 2 years, and then come back, and then 20 years later they end up going back to their world. So it's got echoes of Narnia, sort of Jumanji. And in an essay that he writes in the back of one of these, Kieran Gillen talks about being inspired by the 1980s kids cartoon series Dungeons and Dragons, which, if you have memory of that, you'll remember what it was. There was the little unicorn, there was the young kid was the barbarian, and the coward was the paladin with the sword, and there was a magician and a barbarian. I don't know. And it's not any more sophisticated than that, really. It's a bit sort of dark, so I guess influenced by Lev Grossman's The Magicians, so more as that take as that was to Harry Potter / Narnia. This is, I guess, to the cartoon Dungeons and Dragons, and it gets through it pages at a fair old clip, but just a bit dark. I'll show you some of the art just so you can see what I mean by dark. It's all a bit sort of dark and depressing. There's one interesting part, I guess, where one of the kids, when they go to this world, presents as a female. One of the boys presents a female, and that's kind of interesting. But some ideas and execution not great. And just sort of, so I read the first one. I thought, well, I thought, well, I'll get it over with. So I read the 2 volumes one after the other. And I'm not even engaged enough to go and read the rest of the series online and pirate it and see what happens. It's a thing. I read it, 2 volumes. After that, fantastic. So I spoke about the Stephanie Plum. After 11 books, I'm sort of done with the series, sort of slap back, not even in the middle, but not completing the series. I also completed a series that I've read all 3 volumes in the last 18 months, probably inspired by BookTube. So the first one was Deborah Levy's Things I Don't Want to Know, which I loved, and I came to Deborah Levy having read Swimming Home and which was, I think, shortlisted for the Booker Prize a few years ago, and didn't love that, and so was off Deborah Levy, and then everyone kept raving on about how this was great. And the reason they were talking about that is because that's the second one there, which I also read last year, called The Cost of Living. And the reason everyone was talking about this, which was published a few years back, this was published first in 2013. So the reason everyone was talking about this last year on BookTube was because the publication of the third and final part of the, I think it's referred to as Deborah Levy's living autobiography, which I think aren't all autobiographies living? Isn't that the point? They're written by, I guess they can be published posthumously, but I don't understand what the living autobiography means. Anyway, it's 3 volumes, and they've all been published in these beautiful primary colours, yes, red, yellow, and blue primary colours. So I read this week the third and final volume, which is called Real Estate. Fantastic. My point reading the first 2 volumes was that the narrator was not terribly likable. And I came into the series not having loved the author's, one of the author's novels, and then reading the author's voice. I thought it was compelling and beautifully written, but pulls off this trick of being a narrator, a writer of autobiography, who doesn't come across as terribly likable as someone I want to spend time with. And then we get to Real Estate. So the first volume was about childhood and moving to England. Grew up in South Africa. The second volume was seemingly a reference to a Simone de Beauvoir book, which I haven't read. But the second volume was very much a modern day Room of One's Own, which I also read in the last year, maybe after I read this. But anyway, yeah, definite parallels between this, The Cost of Living, which is about Deborah Levy, divorced in her early 40s and having to channel her art in a way that provides money for her and to bring up her 2 daughters. So that was, again, not a super likable protagonist, but something really clear-sighted and terrific about the way she writes about the necessity of turning art into commerce. And but by the time we get to Real Estate, she's in her turning 60, and it's looking back of what she's achieved, but also looking forward. Okay, what have I got, and what do I aspire to? Do we still have aspirations at this age in life? And the book is called Real Estate, and she makes a terrific pun about all the places she dreams of owning, the homes that she dreams of living in and furnishing, and so she has a lot of unreal estate in her head. That's the pun made here. She constantly refers to this, well, I just had that table and the thing, and I'd be able to see this out of the window, and that's her part of her unreal estate, as opposed to her real estate, which is an apartment, I believe, in Belsize Park. But there's also a lot of moving around here. She goes to Paris, is invited to spend a year writing in Paris, and so we find out about her apartment there. And there are different places around the world where she ends up spending time and in different retreats. So there are, or if she doesn't own these places, they're not real estate, but in each of them they fuel her dreams of the unreal estate, which she may never end up possessing. Just fantastic, really great collection. I'm really grateful to BookTube for putting these in my path, and really happy to have read all of those. And I really love the first one. I was a little cooler, I think, on the second one, maybe, I don't remember. But yeah, as a whole, they're fantastic. It's a great series. If you've got any love for modern day writing about writing, autobiographical narrative nonfiction, this is a great collection by a great writer who I still am not sure I would be friends with, but I warmed to her much more, having sort of made my peace that I didn't admire the narrator, but I admired the work. I think I came round to liking her much more by the time we get to Real Estate. Great. Really, really good. I'm pleased I have all 3 sort of matching volumes, and happy to have these on my shelves, and highly recommended. After that, another frontlist book, which I picked up when I had all this money from work and I had to order a bunch of stuff. And I didn't read Weike Wang's previous book, which was Chemistry, I believe. So I picked up Joan is Okay, which is a short book, 200 and something pages, 210 pages. yeah, whatever. It's another one of these sort of. Okay, if we're going to do the one word pitch, this is Eleanor Oliphant as a Chinese American doctor. It's one of these weird, you know, I shouldn't say clearly. It presents as a neurodivergent woman. It's never diagnosed. There's never clarity on what is different about Joan. She hates the word different, like that's made clear a couple of times. She doesn't like to use the word different. She has a brother who's been extraordinarily successful. Her parents live in China, so she was brought up in America. Her parents went back to live in China, and her father dies at the very beginning of this book, and so she has to go. She takes off. She's an ICU doctor in, I don't remember which city we're in. New York, of course, and she takes the weekend to fly to China for her father's funeral and comes back to work straight away. And she's a workaholic. She doesn't want to take any time off. She doesn't have any friends, and clearly, or maybe not clearly, but seems very obviously painted as neurodivergent in this weird Eleanor Oliphant kind of way, where she gets through school, gets a place at Harvard, I believe, trains as a doctor, works as a doctor, rents an apartment in New York, and somehow has never heard of or seen an episode of Seinfeld. And who are these people, Jerry and George? What is going on? Why are you talking about this? I've never heard or seen or anything of this content. It's just not, you know, it is someone making up what it must be, what they think it is to be neurodivergent. Maybe there are people like this. Maybe I couldn't get it also with Eleanor Oliphant. You know, she was supposed to be so in love with somebody, but she never heard of Simon Cowell. It was like these weird there plot points that this personality was shoehorned into for the sake of narrative, which didn't ring true at all. There's some good stuff in here about being Chinese American, but I think it's been, I read novels recently that handle that better, but she makes some good points. There's good stuff here about her and her brother and their different attitudes to life. I think at the heart of this is another grief novel, although 8 years after my father died, I seem to read everything as a grief novel, but this is explicitly Joan's father has died, and she's never really dealt with it. When the mother comes over, she gets stuck there. Oh, and there's also the pandemic is happening. So the novel is written early 2019, and mother's flown over after father dies. The mother's flown over and is staying with the ultra successful brother in somewhere in upstate New York in his huge estate and his mansion with his beautiful kids and his perfect wife. And the mother comes over and she can't go back because the Chinese flu has just started, and they talk about that and what that means and what it's like to be Chinese American, with people thinking that they're responsible for whatever's just kicking off over there. To be clear, I was not using the term Chinese flu as where I would describe COVID-19. It's referenced in the book, and the names whatever. It's all about that early stages and the impact on Chinese Americans and the suspicion with which they were treated. Yeah, that's all part of it. There's a lot going on here for such a short novel, and none of it very deeply explored, and then it fizzles out at the end. So Joan is okay. Some nice moments, a couple of interesting things, but just felt unexplored. And that's it. And then what I'm currently reading now is just started Virology by Joseph Osmondson, which I thought was going to be like a pop science book about viruses and covering COVID-19 and HIV, and I think it's more of a personal memoir / set of essays. I've already only 30 pages in, and I'm already know more about the first blowjob that Joseph Osmondson gave and how it felt than I was expecting to find in a book about viruses. But I'm here. It's clearly from a queer standpoint. And I'm here for essays as much as I'm here for popular science. So I just was slightly wrong-footed. I thought it was going to be one thing, and it seemed to be more of the other. So I went back to Goodreads and looked at reviews, and a lot of people said, yeah, this was not what I was expecting, but I'm here for what it is rather than what I thought it would be. So I'll let you know how that goes. Should be reading that this weekend, and then Treacle Walker just arrived, and that should be able to whiz through that as well. Anyway, that's where I'm at, under 15 minutes. So thank you for sticking around. God bless. Bye.